Hi everyone, Barb here from the SWBN, and today we're going to talk about cool tool number 2, and it's called Google Translate. And this tool made a real difference in my father's business this past week, so I want to give you almost like a case study using the tool to show you what I was able to do. So here is what we're going to do. We're going to call this a bit of a case study, and basically what I did was I sold a high-ticket musical instrument sight unseen to a non-English speaking client halfway across the world. It was a really neat event, a neat experience, and I want to share it with you. Even though I know most of you probably who are in internet marketing, your market is the US, you may occasionally have an opportunity where you have a client or a potential customer from another country and you don't speak their language and they don't speak yours, but hey, if I can do it, then you can do it. So let's get started. So the way this story starts, or this case study starts, is that we received a phone call from a gentleman in France, and my mother answered the phone at the workshop, and she was able to determine that he was interested in harpsichords, and then she got his email address, or what we hoped was his correct email address, and she passed it on to me because I'm the one that does all the marketing and most of the communications with clients. And so once I tracked him down properly, because the email address wasn't quite right, what I realized was, well, how am I going to do this? Because the client only spoke French and we only speak English, and I needed to figure out how I was going to communicate with him. So what I had realized, I kind of had an epiphany. Well, we have on the SWBN blog over here, we have a plugin called Translator. I think it's called, I don't recall the exact name of it at the moment. I may do another video on this tool in particular. Anyway, I realized that if people coming to visit the SWBN blog could translate it into their own language, then why couldn't I use a similar tool to communicate by email with this customer in France in his language? So I just want to show you, this is not the tool that this video is about, but I wanted to show you what it actually does. So if you see here, these are all different countries that this blog can be translated into in different languages. So I'm going to click on French because that's what my customer was going to be speaking in. And so here it shows you how this translation tool translates our entire blog for SWBN into French, and it's pretty darn cool. So I thought to myself, well, if we can do that with this tool on the blog, then there must be a way to do it by email. Now, the translation tool that I ended up going with was Google Translate, although I did check some other translation tools, as I'll show you here. You type translate or translation into Google and there's tons and tons and tons. You know, look at all these pages of results. However, not all are created equal, and I did do some testing and found that overall Google Translate had the most consistently accurate translations, so that's what I ended up using and what I will continue to use in the future. I did try Yahoo Babelfish, and there was another free translation tool that I used as well. And in the beginning I tested them, so I created an email in English that I wanted to send to the customer in French. So I would put that email first into Google Translate and then into Yahoo Babelfish and then this third one, just to see what would come out. And the same thing when the customer replied to me in French, I put his reply into 2 or 3 of these translation tools, because sometimes it helped me actually get the gist of what he was saying, because sometimes translation tools are not perfect, by any means not perfect, but they are adequate, as this case study will show. So I did do some testing, and it did help to sometimes plug in the French text into a couple of different translators, because sometimes they interpreted some of the phrases slightly differently, and it would help me understand what the customer was trying to get at. So that worked well. But for purposes of this cool tool demonstration, Google Translate is the one we're going to go with. So it's pretty straightforward. What you want to do is type up your email in English and then copy and paste it into the window here, and then you want to choose which languages. So obviously in this case we're starting with English, and since my customer was from France, we want to translate into French, and then click translate. And here we go. So here's the original English that I wrote, and here is the French. Look at that, doesn't it look lovely? All looks very professional, and I mean, it looks good at first sight. However, because I don't speak French, I really don't know the quality of the translation that happened here. So here's what I did next, and this turned out quite well. It ended up helping me refine the email as best as I could. What I now do is I highlight the translated text and I copy, and then I go over here and I select the text in here, and then I'm going to paste the French back over on this side. And then down here, you see this little thing here, it says swap. So I'm going to hit swap, and now what it's going to do is it's going to take what I just translated into French. It's now going to translate it back into English so that I can see how well the translation went, and maybe if I need to do a few tweaks here and there to make it sound clearer or whatever. So here again, I'm going to click translate, and here we have the translation swapped, so back into English. So what I noticed when I did this process is that it's not going to be perfect. So when I translate back into English again, it's not exactly what I originally wrote, but I read it through and I make sure it is at least adequate so that, you know, the person on the other end is going to be able to, you know, that it'll make sense. Anyway, so that's what I did. I would tweak it back and forth until I was happy that the translation was adequate, and then I would just copy and paste and put it into an email. And what I did was, in this case, I put the email in French and in English so that I had a record of it in English, and even the customer, if the customer found that the French translation wasn't perfect, maybe he could have a look at the English and that would help him clarify it. So that was basically the process, and I went back and forth with the customer like this for a period of almost a week and a half, and got the sale. It was an amazing process. So here's the first email I sent in English, and then here it is in French for him. And obviously he had no problem reading it, because here is his first reply back to me in French, and I translated it here into English. That's basically how to use this tool, and I was just been very pleased with the result. And next time we get a request from someone in another country, I will use this tool again, and hopefully we'll have the same results. So I hope that this has been helpful. It's possible that, you know, you may never use it, but at least you know it exists, and maybe it'll come in handy one day in one of your niches. And so until next time, have a great week.